Good day, Chief here for Chief Tells Tales. Probably only a couple more videos of my career left, but I'll talk about other subjects. As I said, when I got to Fort Gordon, I was the Senior 4 and finally got a battalion commander or a brigade commander who came in and said, "Chief, I want you to take over the warrant officers and do some kind of program." So we did. We had the fours would have a monthly meeting, and we would have a class like every month. And I taught a few classes, and some of the other warrant officers taught MOS specific classes on what they did, what they could talk about. And we always did this at a luncheon. And then occasionally our brethren from Savannah would show up, because we had a CW5 pilot who knew our brigade commander and came up to advise us too. So we had fun, and like I said, we always had a luncheon when we did this, and I had fairly good attendance. Occasionally I would have to question why certain warrant officers weren't there, because all the warrant officers were supposed to participate willingly. I taught a class about the history of the warrant officer, and I got quite a few compliments. I wish I had that brief. I no longer have that. I could probably teach that or do that over one of these sessions, but I don't have that brief anymore. So we had fun, and then about 9 months before I officially retired, but wasn't thinking of retirement, I wanted to do 30. We had our branch manager come out, and they do this yearly brief, and this one was with the sad, wonderful news of the new criteria to become a CW5, which was very hard to obtain. There was a Army Chief of Staff, I don't exactly remember which one it was, but he was saying one time, there's too many senior warrant officers in the Army and we need to get rid of some of them. So that's why they changed the criteria. Basically, the main thing that really hurt a lot of us was, out of your last 4 OERs, you had to have 1 blocks, 3 1 blocks out of 4. Which is very hard to obtain at that time, because I can't remember, I think it's only 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 3 officers can actually get a 1 block. So that means my last assignment, first year I was there, I was by myself. So I'm 100% of the warrant officers at CW4 couldn't get a 1 block. It's got to be 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 3. Couldn't get a 1 block. So then my second year there, 2 of us, neither one of us could get a 1 block, because it's 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 3. I can't remember exactly. So, and then my battalion commander was amazed, because he also gave a brief prior to that about how everybody's file gets looked at for promotion. And he says, if you don't have that in your OERs, that little peak, like a pulse, you're not going to get promoted. And I told him, I said, "Sir, I'm a 2 throughout my entire warrant officer career. I was a 2. I never got a 1 block, because like I said previously, I had 2 colonels or lieutenant colonels. Chief, I don't give 1 blocks to warrant officers." Well, thank you, sir. You're only hurting my career, but my career didn't get hurt until the very tail end. So I'll talk about my retirement when that comes up. It was sad. And I mentioned that I was getting fatter, and like I said, I've come to find out that my thyroid must have acted up while I was there, because I was running twice a day. And we had this big long track around the parade field. I think it was like 2.5 miles or something like that, 1 loop. Don't remember exactly, but it was a good distance. And I had fun there with first sergeants and sergeant majors of the battalion. And because they just couldn't believe that me in my late 50s was still running, let alone still doing PT and still in the Army. And of course I had one of them who said, well, Chief, you must have been a lousy NCO. And I just looked at him, I said, don't go there. And he just kind of looked at me, but we had a joking relationship. We really did. It was really good. And then my first sergeant, he got scared one day. We had the Sergeant Major of the Army come to Fort Gordon, and specifically to our facility for one day. And of course, my hair is always questionable in the military. I love my long hair. I need a haircut real bad again now because it's way over the ears. So my hair was just above the ear. And I was late getting to my section, and the Sergeant Major of the Army was already in there, so I opened the door. I didn't know he was in there. They had no guard at the door saying, hey, you can't go in, because they don't like to be disturbed, supposedly. So I peek my head in, and I go up against the wall, and of course all the heads turn to see who entered, who had the gumption to enter while Sergeant Major of the Army's being briefed. Yeah, whatever. So I got up alongside of the wall like everybody else did. He thanked a few soldiers, gave them, Sergeant Major of the Army coin. I'll talk about coins later. I'll show some of mine if I can. I don't know if it'll focus in on them. So he left our section, went into the next section where the contractors work, and I went back to my position to start work, and I'm sitting there, and my first sergeant stoops next to me, and he's just looking up at me, and I'm looking down at him, and he's like, Chief. I said, I know, I need a haircut. He goes, yes. He says, there was a threat to send you to the general of the post. I said, really? I said, I would love to meet him. And his eyes just got so big. And I looked at him, I said, First Sergeant, what is he going to do to me? He's going to tell me, Chief, you've been a bad boy, go get your hair cut. And that's what I would do. But I would get my hair cut prior to going seeing him. And my first sergeant was just like, yes, Chief. And I had a good relationship with this guy because he followed, because we transferred from one company to another company together. I forgot why we switched companies at one time, but they kind of shuffled everybody around, and then he started at one company and came over to my company along with us, and had fun with him. And he was bald, so I had a nice head of hair, and I always teased him about it. And things like that. So I had fun at my last duty assignment. Of course, it was disheartening to be told that you're not going to make CW4. And at the same time, that same year, back when we only had CW4 as our senior rank, you could stay in the military as a CW3 beyond your 2 promotion boards. You just had to sign this letter saying, I want to still serve in the Army, and I know that I will never be promoted again. Plain and simple, you sign that letter, you can continue on, you can do your years, and you'd be a CW3 back in that day. So I asked, do they have that letter for the CW4? No, they got rid of it, especially for this reason, because there's too many senior warrant officers in the Army. And what was really strange is that, like when I first got there, there was like 4 or 5 of us, and we grew to 10 due to promotions and due to transfers. So there was like 10 of us. So when I retired, another guy retired, and the next senior 4 looked at me and he said, well, due to that criteria, I'm not going to make 5, so I might as well start next year's putting in my retirement paperwork. So I think he did. I don't know if he got a job there or not, because he probably could have, because he was an imagery tech and he was really good. So they probably would have kept him, especially as a contractor. So I hope he did that. But there was a big exodus of 5s or 4s when I got out and 2013. Not much really happened. Like I said last week's, that promotion was hilarious. Me raising my left, and it was with that female who had 4 kids and said she was never going to get married again. So I had to laugh. I hope they're still married. They probably are, because he was a good guy and she was a good girl. Oh God, I can't talk. So I did a lot of work there. I enjoyed it. And then, like I said, the hand receipt, that was such a headache. I did not like that. I took the hand receipt over from the captain of my section. And I think he did it out of spite because he was retiring. And he and I butted heads a few times. Nothing insubordination, but just, questioning some of his acts and decisions. He was a good guy, but he just didn't want to make majors, so that's why he got out. But I think he gave me the hand receipt out of spite. I really do. And like I said, as soon as I got that hand receipt and saw all this useless equipment or excess equipment we weren't using, I started the wheels turning, and I got with the warrant officer that was in charge of our logistics / ordnance, and he was a good guy too, and he says, great. He says, finally someone's coming to me rather than me going looking for them. And then as soon as I started, everybody else started too. So all of a sudden it went from nobody doing nothing to try to turn in old equipment to like everybody in the battalion trying to turn in equipment. So he had his hands tied because he could only do so much. Because I think he only had like 1 or 2 soldiers working for him. So when we turn in our paperwork, that generates new additional paperwork for him so he can turn everything in on one master sheet rather than a bunch of small sheets. So, and every month, a little bit, every month. It was really nice. And some months it was just like a whole lot. And still had a lot of stuff. I mean, we started emptying out storage lockers in the motor pool. Yeah, we had a motor pool, but we had no vehicles. We had a few vehicles, but not very many. But none were assigned. Like I said, I never went to the field here. And that was really weird, too, because I got all the equipment to go to the field. Never went to the field, so all the equipment sat in my house for the period of time that I was there. So it was like, well, don't have to clean hardly any of it. I mean, the range stuff, of course, your canteens and ammo pouches, what you wore to the range. That was about it. So it was nothing major. And that was fun. So maybe I'll talk about ranges next week because I think I had some fun on one of the ranges. I can't remember. All I know is every time I fired my 9mm, the soldiers kept saying, hey, Chief, I want to be next to you when we go to war. And I'm like, no, I want you to shoot them way before they come in range for me to shoot them with my pistol. Because I said, if I'm shooting them with the pistol, that means you're not shooting them with your rifle at a long range. So kind of rambles today, trying to tie it up because like I said, this is my last assignment. Can't talk about my job, so I have to talk about what I did there. And like I said, no exercises, no field. But I did go to, I can talk about Kazakhstan. I went to Kazakhstan while I was there. So we'll talk about Kazakhstan next week because that was fun. So this is Chief out. Freedom's not free. You know what to do with the vet.